Hello everybody, in today's video I want to talk about Coreum infrastructure and record this Coreum Twitter space about Whitepaper and name technical background with the team. It's going to be in a couple of minutes today and I hope I could ask my questions. They said have your questions ready. I have pretty many of them. Maybe they will be answered today hopefully. And before I start, I want to say thank you guys for watching me, more and more people joining my channel. Thank you guys for all your support, especially with this tough times in crypto. So thank you guys all. And let us wait a little bit for this session and Twitter space starts, and then we will listen it all together with you.
Oliveira and Milad Sahidi, which are team members of the Coreum development team. The points that we're going to touch today, and take it away.
Thanks again, Fabio. So, hi again, everyone. Welcome to the Twitter space for Coreum Technical Whitepaper. So, the purpose for today's space is basically go over some questions that were raised and some of the other questions that the community had. So, basically, since we released the light paper or the blueprint we call a few months ago, there's been some changes and some improvements, and so we're happy to cover those today. And I think a lot of community members had questions about the inflation model and security, etc. So would like to take this opportunity today to address those and perhaps answer some of the questions that community has. Maybe we can have people raise their hands and invite them to ask questions once we go over some of the points. What do you think, Fabio?
Absolutely. I think the inflationary model has been one of the most requested questions on Twitter, and I think we can start with that maybe. Give it 10-20 minutes for just topics that we have already prepared, that we've gathered, and then we'll open up for questions from the community.
Sure, sounds great.
So let's start with the change, the inflationary model. How did the team got around this idea in the first place?
Yeah, so basically, when I think we've done a lot of R&D, benchmarking, testing, all that stuff for a long time now. And so initially, because we think that incentivization is really good for a blockchain. And unlike other maybe blockchains, we actually do think that's the best for a lot of things, for engagement, for security, etc. So incentivization doesn't necessarily mean validators or network participants to get direct payments or coins by contributing, but also means incentivization in terms of low fees and other benefits, higher security, and so on. So thinking of incentivization as a whole, we wanted to basically have everyone to kind of win when using Coreum blockchain. So it's a win-win-win scenario for everyone, for validators, for the network, for community, and for the users, for the end users. So that's why we initially designed a rewards pool. So the idea was to put 10% of the total supply into the rewards pool, and so essentially have some incentives in terms of direct coin incentives to validators from this pool. And so from transactions that were gathered in each block, we would put back some back into the pool. So we ran a lot of simulations and a lot of tests. And so we were kind of uncertain about whether this model would work in the long term. So maybe in 5, 10, 20 years, you don't really know what's going to basically happen with the blockchain. If the activity is really high, then the amount of tokens that are put back into the reward pool would increase a lot. And if the activity was down and low, the vice versa would happen. The pool would essentially dry out. And so this was the initial incentivization model specifically designed for validators. So over the course of past year, we have done, again, a lot of more research. And in the team, we have reached a consensus, an agreement by voting to whether to change the whole model to an inflationary model. And there's a lot of benefits and good things about having an inflationary model. And I think I would like to ask Milad to also speak about why because Milad was one of the people who was strongly in favor of the inflationary model. So I think it's best for me to invite Milad to speak and share his ideas about why he thinks it's essential to have an inflationary model on a proof of stake blockchain.
Thanks, Reza. Well, as Reza mentioned, we did a lot of benchmarking in the team, and we managed to come up with a model which very accurately predicts the security and the transaction cost and the transaction per second, and also blockchain usage, and puts them all into a model and basically predicts how secure the blockchain is. So with that said, the model that we came up with predicts accurately. I actually put that model into the existing blockchains, and we realized that the model is very accurate in predicting the other blockchains. So we were confident that this is the case and this is true. And what happened is that the security of proof of stake is a factor of the staked tokens, and we want a lot of people to stake their tokens. We don't want to have a low total value locked, which is the total amount that the network participants have locked as a stake. So and people will put their money as a stake only if they are incentivized to do so. So basically, if we don't introduce inflation, so we can incentivize the network participants and validators by transaction fees. But if we keep the transaction fees low, that means that there's not enough incentivization, and that also means that people will not stake their money, which means low security for the network. To get around that, we decided to introduce inflation, and with inflation, at the end of each block, we mint some tokens and distribute them among the validators, so the validators are incentivized to put more tokens as a stake, which in turn increases the blockchain security. So basically, that was the main idea behind this, that in order to have a very secure proof of stake blockchain, we need to have a high total value locked, or in other words, total stake that is put in by validators and delegators. And to reach that, we either need to have high fees for transactions or introduce inflation. So the decision was that we shouldn't lock ourselves into a single decision. We should have the transaction fees decided by community. And if the community decides that they want to have low transaction fees, they can do that via voting. And if they decide that they want low transaction fees, then the inflation will go up. Basically, it's a balance. So if the community decides that they want to reduce transaction fees, it means that the inflation goes up. And if they decide that they want to have lower inflation or even zero inflation, they can vote on that as well via governance. And that means that transaction fees will go. So basically, that's the decision that's made. So
to clarify that, even the current inflation model is decided by the community. So essentially, the network comes up with a specific inflation percentage. And that inflation percentage changes dynamically based on the network, TVL, or total value locked, as Milad mentioned. However, that is still configurable by community voting and proposals. So that's actually on-chain voting. So the community has the final say on whether this blockchain will be inflationary or deflationary. Now, by inflation, I just want to emphasize that I've seen a lot of comments from different people saying, oh, so the team can mint tokens, or that this blockchain is like the tokens can be minted on, at will, and if the team or if anybody wants. But that's not true. So the initial supply is minted at the Genesis block, and after that point on, everything is basically decided by the community and the governance system of the blockchain. So it's not like that the team or there is no one behind this blockchain. So we don't really call this a team behind it, and we don't own this blockchain. We are contributing to the code. We are asking the community to basically come forward and help with the development and all that stuff. But once the blockchain is mainnet, the Sologenic Development Foundation, which is essentially working on this project, is just a team that's working on the project. So one day, essentially, there could be another team that could be bigger than us with the number of developers or the resources and can contribute more. So that's the whole idea behind a decentralized blockchain. And if you use a proof of stake model like Coreum, then the inflation model is necessary to keep the transaction fees low and keep the network secure, and yet have the network to be decided by the community via governance.
Thank you, Reza. I think that was a very good clarification and overall summary of what Milad contributed. I think Mauricio was raising his hand. He had a question directly for the team.
Hey guys, yeah, I just was wanting a bit of clarification and for the community, just because I've seen some comments on the more TVL that is staked and locked, also it lowers the inflation, right? So if we hit the threshold that we're looking for to have 70 to 80% of the supply staked, then therefore it would be less inflationary every time the more core is staked. Is that correct?
That's correct. Yes. So basically, the network, the blockchain adjusts itself to attract more people to stakes. And so once it reaches that point, then it basically lowers the inflation to deter more stakes, because it doesn't really want like 100% of the whole supply to be staked. So that basically that percentage changes everything from inflationary model to deflationary model. I mean, if you look at the security or the TVL, the more staked, that means the more community engagement. Every single update, every single decision needs to be decided by a larger community than if it was a deflationary model from the get-go. You would have like a smaller group of validators or a smaller group of stakers to vote for decisions. But now you have a larger community. And inflation is not always bad if you hedge yourself against it. So that means Well, there is inflation, right? But if you stake your tokens, you will not get affected by inflation at all. Not only that, you'll gain transaction fees. So staking is beneficial to the community by hedging them against inflation and getting rewarded from the transaction fees.
Absolutely. I think it makes sense now to move to an adjacent topic, which is validators. Since we're talking about staking, there was a few changes from the blueprint to the white paper and the concept of super validators. Uh, should we dive deeper into that, Reza?
Sure, but in the meantime, do we have any questions? Let's see if the community has any questions about the inflation model so we can completely wrap that section up and then move on to the validators.
Can I ask one more question, Reza? That I've been seeing on the
yeah, Mauricio, go ahead. Yeah.
Also, I saw a comment asking if how we will be proceeding with the 6 months of more Coreum Airdrop to solo holders, but after that we will be basically switching over to core airdrops to core holders. Is there a possibility to further the incentivization of staking and only give the core airdrops to stakers of the network?
Well, essentially, these are the initial supply that are being distributed. After that point on, the validators will get the newly minted tokens, which is coming through inflation, right? So I think there are completely two separate things because the initial supply needs to be distributed amongst the community. And the way we're distributing it makes sure that a bunch of different communities can basically get the airdrops, and if they want, they can start their own validators. And once that happens, they'll get the incentivizations directly from the network.
Thank you. That was all my questions.
Awesome. We do have a question from Coin Girl.
Hello everybody. Hi guys, thank you for this space. I have a question on inflation. You did the tweet saying that the estimation of total value locked is going to be about 80-90% of the whole supply. And I'm wondering how did you come up with this estimation? Because normally I see that in different blockchains it is about from 40 to 80% of TVL staked. So, and only a few have 85%. So that's why I'm wondering about this 89%.
That's actually a great question. I think the 80 to 90% is the best case scenario. That means like you have a really like a maximum security. And we definitely want to reach that point, but comparing other blockchains, you can easily see blockchains reaching 80%. So 80% is not a very high number. Like it's not the maximum that it can go up to, but if it goes above that, it's perfect. So maybe we can just say, like, I think once the mainnet goes up, you will start seeing gradually the TVL go up. So it's not like from the first day you'll reach 80-90%. Well, once everything's there, once everything like the network performs and continues, then that TVL goes up. And we really hope that it goes up as much as it's possible, because that ensures the security of the network.
Yeah, got it. Thank you so much for responding.
Thank you, Coin Girl.